Welcome to day 2 of e-commerce reimagined. We had a successful, if not somewhat technically glitchy day yesterday. Many interesting presentations and panels. We had just around 200 people attend day 1 of e-commerce reimagined, and we're looking forward to a couple hundred people today. Today we have a full day of sessions, 16 in total. You'll hear from startups like Rody and the US, investors like Hans Tung of GGV. If you're not aware of GGV, they're investors in ByteDance, the TikTok parent company, Poshmark, Wish, and very active investors in both China and Chinese e-commerce. So it'll be an interesting Q&A with Hans. We'll have a panel coming up in half an hour with omni-channel brands Levan and Bandier. We'll discuss how they've responded successfully to the challenging environment. And later today, we'll have a session with Julie Thibault, formerly head of global fragrance and retail innovation at Chanel, and Bart Higgins, founder of FutureX, who will give their unique perspectives on the future of bricks and mortar retail. But first, we have Patrick Miller, co-founder of Flywheel Digital, which became part of Essential in 2019. Flywheel Digital helps leading manufacturers achieve digital sales, brand, and supply chain goals. They're a certified Amazon partner, as well as one of 4 advertising API partners with Walmart. Flywheel built their proprietary tech stack to meet the unique needs of the world's most complicated brands and drive disproportionate digital retail success, as Patrick will introduce. And he'll also discuss the COVID impact to Amazon and digital retail more broadly, and look at channel shifting and media trends. So with that, I will bring Patrick to the main stage. If there are any questions, please ask them in the chat. Patrick, welcome.
Great. Really looking forward to diving in and sharing what we're seeing really across digital retail, and what the impact has been, with COVID. So we've got 15 slides, 15 minutes. So we'll start, moving through things, but looking forward to questions as we get into this. So if we look at sort of the overall e-commerce penetration rate within the percentage of total U.S. Retail sales, it took us a decade to gain 10 points, and then in about 9 weeks, we gained another 11 points. And so it's been an absolute, so what COVID has done is accelerated existing trends, but much more rapidly. And then as we start to look back, this is data that Click put out yesterday. And sort of highlighted in red here, what I think is the biggest takeaway. So yeah, the sales continue to go up. So 1.2 billion to 4 billion, 5.3, 6.6. But look what it's driven by. It's yes, the customers are still going up, 39.5, 40, 43, et cetera. But look at the frequency. And so your average customer has gone from 1.2 to 1.9 trips per month using online grocery pickup. To me, that says that customers like the experience. They're not just going once. They're going multiple times per month. Sort of to triangulate this data, this is now taking data from Amazon's new to brand function and aggregate across all of our clients. And so looking at sort of the March and April data indexed to February. So 92% increase in new to brand, 130% increase in new to brand. And then look at May, it's only 16%, yet sales are still going up. So what does that tell me? It tells me people are coming back and they're buying again. So to me, this says that this channel shift, this isn't just one time, people trying it, they don't like it, and then they don't come back. And they're sticking around and they like the experience. But out of stock is a headwind. So if I look at the monthly rep out of stock, across our portfolio, indexed to January, we can see Feb up 75%, March 200, April 212, 160, 140, still in June. So with all this heightened demand, Amazon is still having substantial out of stock. When we then look and compare this and do a quick little regression analysis, we got a negative 0.7, between out of stocks and what happens within conversions. So what does that look like in another way? So now let's look at this as far as delayed fulfillment and out of stock. And so here, this is just a single ASIN, a single Amazon SKU. Purple is conversion rate, hovering around 50%, conversion rate. But then look at the drop as delayed fulfillment comes in there. So you can see where that cliff is. That's where the buy box messaging shifts, from, hey, it's Prime, you can get it in a day or so, to usually ships within 2 to 4 weeks. To me, this is the ultimate expression as, supply chain as a top line growth driver. A lot of brands think of supply chain as a cost cutting exercise. On Amazon, this is how you grow top line. And I think this is a good expression, of that, showing data in real time. And the next question is then, okay, well, what goes into driving a purchase order? So this is, sort of for vendors, so typically large brands, the goal here is to get Amazon to order more so that you are actually in stock. So, I want to avoid situations like this where I'm going out of stock where there's delayed fulfillment. So how do you then trigger that, that purchase order? So, so the tricky part is, one, it's not a person cutting the purchase order; it's a machine cutting it. And every ASIN and every GL is a little bit different. So you would look at sort of what is the demand, the details of the ASIN, the inventory levels. And what's tricky about the inventory levels is you don't know it by fulfillment center. You only know an aggregate. What's your overall lead time? Where are the locations? And any sort of pick pack issues or prep issues. Put all those together. You run it through a model. You then see what's going to happen within a purchase order. Simplifying that a little bit, though, really there's just two main things that are driving it. It's eyeballs or glance views and how out of stock you are. And out of stock is a function of total eyeballs. So it's a weighted way of measuring this, of saying, hey, whole lot of eyeballs and out of stock, you're going to then, increase the percentage and aggregate across the overall vendor code. That then triggers purchase orders. You can see sort of down at the bottom. So for a brand perspective, you then have the question around, what's my inventory position and how does that impact my ad strategy? And so the core question I think a lot of folks have is, well, if I have low inventory on an item, should I advertise that item? And no, you should not if you're in a seller and going in danger of going out of stock. And the reason that is because you actually control the inventory position, because you would then forward deploy the items to Amazon's fulfillment center. If you're a vendor and you're out of stock at your distribution center, especially important for anybody who's importing and may have longer lead times. So you're not going to be able to fulfill the order if it comes in anyway, so you shouldn't advertise it. Or if you're a vendor and you have and the ASIN just isn't a priority. However, if you're a vendor and you want to drive this ASIN long term, you want a purchase order, you should absolutely be advertising that ASIN and spiking it out of stock as quickly as possible so that you'll then drive an additional purchase order from Amazon. When we look at sort of customer behavior across, COVID, we can see, for Amazon, it's, it's principally a search platform. So we can then look and see sort of how is the customer, sort of searching across the platform, how are they interacting? Late Jan, Feb, you can start to see the spike in blue of N95 mask, face mask, surgical mask. Early March, when really sort of the peak of out of stock in Amazon, in some ways, turning off FBA and having lots of constraints on both inbound and outbound freight. All of a sudden, you start seeing CPG start to take off. Toilet paper being number one, toilet paper bulk, disinfectant wipes, et cetera, et cetera. Now today, sort of week beginning, 6/21, you continue to see sort of, both PPE and CPG items at heightened levels, but now we're also starting to see a little bit of return to normal. So iPhone 11 case is, back in at number 5. It had been previously number 1, but also stay-at-home searches, polls, desks, gaming chair, et cetera. People are stuck at home and they're looking for, to meet these different need sets, across Amazon. Now, from an advertising performance perspective, you can see sort of on the left-hand side is, looking at performance, month index to January. So we can look at clicks in blue and CPC in orange. And so, sort of the short story is clicks are way up, costs are way down. Thus, ROAS is also up. So if I then look at sort of on the right-hand side, we can then look at this on a weekly grain, and you can see that trough, within CPCs, the sort of in early April. But and now returning back to where it was before. This is a bias towards vendors. If you look at sellers, it's going to be a little bit lower because they're having greater problems with in-stock rates. So depending on the category, sort of a high concentration of vendors, you're going to see greater increases in CPCs. Seller categories, you're going to see lower CPCs just because they don't have the inventory position. But what's most interesting to me is sort of the new normal, which is that orange line on the right side. And you can see sort of how much heightened the traffic is overall. And then sort of this then indexes to what we would look at on the first couple slides of showing that channel shift is not returning, even as some states open up. The customers are staying on Amazon and shopping. Also seeing heightened performance specifically on sponsored brands and the sponsored brands other placement. Customers are finding that they're hitting pages, it's sometimes out of stock, they're looking for a trusted brand, so they're clicking on that other placement, driving in there, and we saw a 90% increase in ROAS and looking at April versus January. So really strong performance across that ad unit. Now that said, sort of for the longest time, sort of Amazon was, taking share and growing more rapidly than anybody else. We have sort of recently, the information, both of these charts, both panel data, but looking at Instacart's growth in groceries on the left-hand side, you can see them overtaking Walmart and rapidly becoming, the share leader. At the same time, Instacart's, is hiring, hundreds of thousands of additional shoppers. They've signed up, Costco. They're able to deliver RX for Costco, and they've recently gone into other categories, working with Big Lots as well as Staples, and then they've recently launched their own advertising platform. On the right-hand side, we can then look at Amazon in yellow and total uniques, also panel data, but then compared to numbers 2 through 11. And so you can see that not only is 2 through 11, growing on a percentage basis more, but actually on an absolute basis as well. We think of some of this as sort of customers discovering new categories, looking to see sort of what else is out there, and then driving and making some of those decisions on those other platforms. So this is sort of a boon for Walmart. You saw yesterday just announced their prime competitor, Instacart. Wayfair is another big winner, as well as Depot. And the big advantage on these new platforms, is one, you have lower cost per clicks. There's less auction density. Two, you have reorder widgets, and you can see both of these, on both Walmart and Instacart. And then lastly, you have no third parties, on when they're picking out of a store. The limitations, the physicality of the store decreases selection, and then allows sort of those that have a traditional brick and mortar distribution, to be the larger winners here. Not true for Walmart.com, but we tend to see sort of lower share erosion on Walmart.com than we do on Amazon. And then lastly, Instacart creates a unique opportunity in that the reorder widget and the logic behind it permeates across retailers, which allows sort of a brand to then sort of, if you win them in one retailer, you're going to be added to the list on the reorder widget across the entire platform. But don't count them out yet. Sort of lastly, we can see just in the last month, the Whole Foods, has been integrated into the main Amazon app. So it's no longer just in Prime Now. It's a much better CX. The reorder widgets are significantly better than where they were on Prime Now. And the delivery time is shockingly fast now. You sort of see on the right-hand side, Amazon, is just my personal account. I got 4 emails in 4 days telling me how great, how fast the delivery was. And yesterday I was ordered groceries and, got them in about an hour and a half for no additional charge. So Amazon has rapidly scaled up delivery, for fresh foods, whether that's across the Fresh banner, the Prime banner, the Whole Foods banner, or the Prime Now banner. And so we're going to see them sort of, fighting back aggressively here, even as customers continue to shift here, and this becomes a priority for both CPGs, but also these digital retailers. So with that, I think I landed close to on 15 minutes, and we'll happily take any questions.
Patrick, awesome. I have some questions about the data you presented, but maybe for everyone's benefit, can you give a little bit of a sense of, or better sense than my quick introduction to Flywheel and how you work with brands who are looking to, better market and build a brand on channels like Amazon or Instagram,
Sure.
Walmart?
Yeah, so we work with brands in a number of ways. We'll run their sort of search or display or OTT, but really fundamentally we're most focused on the retail aspects and retail fundamentals. Whether that is creating channel strategies, price pack architecture, figuring out issues with remnants and channel integrity issues, trade issues, transship issues, as well as modeling for supply chain. So being able to predict sort of what optimizations need to happen across the supply chain, to best fulfill orders. So, sort of focus on the retail side, but also do a lot of work on the media side as well.
Cool. And can you talk a little bit about the supply chain, a little bit more about the supply chain as a driver of demand? I've certainly seen that as this is anecdotal, but I bought shoes on Zappos, like new trail running shoes, and it took like 2.5 weeks. Kind of drove me crazy.
Yep.
And I wondered, should I have driven back to New York City to go to a store versus buying online? So one, what does one do about that, and then how do you work with them to help them kind of reconcile?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all become, conditioned to this idea that, hey, I click a button and it magically shows up at my doorstep, a day or two later, and in some instances, a couple hours. And so if I'm a brand, what needs to be true in order for that to happen? And so how do I work backwards and what that customer experience is like? And whether that's the unboxing moment, and unboxing is no longer, just for iPhones, it's for cereal. And what do you want that experience to be like? And how do you ensure that your items are going to be in stock, and that the customer is like just doing your example of like when you order the shoes that it exceeds expectations, and that is sort of a partnership that brands need to develop with the retailers, and in parallel with the retailers. So investing in things like drop ship, figuring out sort of whether it's a cross dock solution, or a sort of what is the freight, how do you get your vendor lead time down? So again, all these things where most brands look at the key supply chain metric as case fill rate. On e-commerce, it's speed to delivery, and so that it's not hey, did I fulfill the full order? It's how quickly did I fulfill it, and whether that is sort of direct to the customer via something like dropship, or sort of a full truck or an LTL, pickup, from the retailer. So brands investing in that, it's not just a savings, but it's a top line growth driver, because we want to delight people. We want their shoes to show up in 2 days, not 2 weeks.
Got it. And then a question from the audience: the increase of e-com ops going in-house at Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
How does Flywheel help a brand with that?
So we're plugged into their API, so we can sort of manage, advertising programmatically. We work very closely with Walmart's partner team, and so when brands want to run it directly, we work with them to then execute on the media side. So the people over there are awesome, and we think that the platform long term has a ton of potential, and we're already seeing very strong performance, shockingly high conversion rates, and very competitive CPCs.
And what is that driven by? Is it the fact that they have all these DCs that can deliver you things very, very quickly? What's causing their traction?
I think it's sort of once the customers hit there, they trust Walmart, they know the experience, and Walmart's done just a great job of sort of getting selection there and keeping it in stock. So it's again, getting back to supply chain, Walmart has among the most sophisticated in the world. And so that customer promise, of, everyday low prices, delivered to your door, customers love it. They're clicking on the ads and they're converting. It's a great way for brands, that have, especially those that have the brick and mortar, you don't have to have just brick and mortar penetration here, but those that do, to take advantage of Walmart's scale, and their immense customer base.
Got it. And I'm asking you to speculate here, but any sense why it took them so long to introduce a prime competitor, given that the Costco business model has been around for 40 years?
I think they wanted to make sure that they got it right, and that when they rolled it out, I mean, I think COVID, delayed it a little bit. But the biggie was just that they wanted to make sure that it was something that customers really wanted, that they would benefit from, and that they saw like the value, in the program, that would then drive signups. I think they see this as a long-term play. They're I think as a group they're deliberate, they're smart, and they want to make the decision one time and do it right.
Got it. Maybe going back to Flywheel, what's the primary reason or catalyst for someone seeking out a business like Flywheel?
It's typically
What's the
people that
trigger?
are
Yeah.
just really, yeah, just we typically work with folks who are they're really curious about this. They want to dig in, they want to better understand it. We tend to work with operationally complex companies, and so the more challenging, the more SKUs, the better. And then they want to. They really want to understand it, and so it's sort of they want to learn with us, and figure out this puzzle, and quite frankly find it enjoyable, both in the value creation, but also just in the deployment of the day-to-day tactics, and what the unlocks are.
Got it. And then from a kind of customer sweet spot perspective, it is those large CPGs like the P&Gs of the world who can best leverage your platform, or can you work with brands big and small?
We work with brands big and small. We say our sweet spots probably are more on the vendor side than the seller side. But we're not interested in arbitrageurs, or sort of we like people that actually want to build brands, long term. We have no interest in cutting Super Bowl ads, but we want to figure out transactionally, how do we help them. So sort of from a performance perspective.
Cool. And then another question from the audience. How does in-store pickup for Walmart position them relative to Amazon?
Love in-store pickup. They did not paint the corner of every store orange and buy a Super Bowl ad, because they were going at this, willy-nilly. They're taking it very seriously. It's a great experience for the customer. You show up, they come right out. You get everything that you're looking for. So I think it's a game changer for them. And it's a huge unlock. And they realize that the physical footprint, like they're really good at real estate. You read Sam Walton's book, and he talks about how he would just fly over all the different stores and look at them all. Like they're good at real estate. They have great real estate, and so they're leveraging this in a 21st century way, to delight the customer and figure out ways to serve their new needs, in a constrained time basis. So I love it. I think it's a huge one for them, and really excited to see what they do with it.
Awesome. And then maybe lastly, Instacart, you noted on one of your slides how they've taken a ton of share. What do you think is behind that? Is it the fact that they plug into many different types of retailers, and so as a user of Instacart, you are able to buy many different things, and that's a competitive advantage over Amazon, where you can obviously buy a lot of things too, but
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that Instacart, is surging is, one, they're an aggregator. So if one store is out of stock, if I'm a customer, I open up Instacart and one store is out of stock of what I want, I can pivot to another store in a frictionless way. So it's great for brands. And then two, they open up things like fast and flexible delivery in the middle of COVID. They added hundreds of thousands of additional shoppers, and so customers that were sort of looking for grocery delivery, they were able to do it in an agile way and scale just absolutely rapidly. They've been both focused on their shoppers and making sure that they both stay safe, as well as adding additional benefits for their shoppers, while also sort of creating new ways for customers to then shop the platforms and make sure that their items are delivered and exceeding expectation. The test buys we've done, you can get stuff in a couple hours across a variety of sites, and things like adding additional features like being able to get your prescriptions from Costco nationally. That's a big deal. And so there's some unique opportunities that they've leveraged, and really excited to be working with them.
Got it. So it's really about I guess convenience, like user experience, and then like leveraging that aggregation to capitalize on some of the supply chain disruptions that you noted earlier.
Exactly. I mean, figure is like if I'm a store and I already have the stuff sitting on my shelf, and even if customers aren't coming in there, Instacart then creates a way for those retailers to get their products to the customer, in a way that is sort of most safe for the customer, for those that are maybe concerned with going into physical retail right now. And as customers like it, like they keep coming back. And so I think we're seeing across all of these is that customers are returning again and again. They like the experience, and it's a great opportunity for both retailers and brands.
Great. Awesome. Patrick, can we share the presentation that you shared with us with attendees?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And for everyone listening, if you're interested in getting in touch with Patrick, we'll create a double opt-in opportunity toward the end of the conference. And so look forward to that. And hopefully, Patrick, you see some people reaching out to you.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity. So it was great to spend some time, and nice to meet everybody.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.